Oh, the absolute indignity of it all. He reduced to a bargaining chip in a game of chance between a drunken Zalaxian and a human with questionable hygiene habits. My name is Vex Noblax, and until approximately 37 galactic standard hours ago, I was a respected xenobiological researcher from the planet Quintera. Now, I'm apparently property of a human trader named Marcus Quinn. This has to be some kind of joke, I said, my sensory tendrils quivering with indignation as the Xylaxian merchant, Gronk, handed my identification chip to the human. I am a senior researcher with 14 published studies on interspecies molecular compatibility. The human Marcus looked almost as uncomfortable as I felt, his facial features scrunched up in that peculiar way humans have when they are experiencing emotional distress. Look, I didn't ask for a person. I was expecting, cargo or credits. Gronk waved his three-fingered hand dismissively, his purple skin glistening under the harsh light of the trading outpost bar. Debt is debt, Quinn. I lost fair and square. The Quinteran is worth at least 50,000 credits on the right market. You are getting a bargain. On the right market? Marcus's voice rose an octave. Are you talking about slavery? That's been illegal in Terran space for centuries. I felt a flicker of hope at the human's apparent moral compass. Perhaps he wasn't the typical brute his species was known for. Gronk snorted, a disgusting sound that involved all three of his nostrils. Not slavery. Indentured servitude. Perfectly legal in the Outer Rim. The Quinterans signed a research contract with my company. The contract is now yours. I most certainly did not sign up for transferable ownership. I protested, my voice modulator clicking rapidly in anger. The agreement was for a 3-cycle research expedition. Read the fine print, tentacle face, Gronk sneered. Section 7, paragraph 12. All contractual obligations may be transferred to third parties at the discretion of Xylax Trading Incorporated. Your contract now belongs to Quinn here. Marcus ran his hands through the strange keratin filaments that sprouted from his head hair. I believe they call it. This is ridiculous. I don't want to own anyone's contract. Too bad, Gronk said, standing up. Deal's done. There's no refunds, no exchanges. Enjoy your new assistant. With that, the purple blob of a merchant waddled away, leaving me alone with my new owner. We stared at each other across the grimy table. I took the opportunity to study him more closely. Humans aren't common in the Outer Rim, but I'd studied their physiology extensively. This specimen appeared to be male, approximately 30 to 35 Earth years in age, but with darker skin than many of his species and those peculiar expressive eyes humans are known for. His clothing was worn but clean, unusual for a trader in these parts. So, he finally said, I'm Marcus. Yes, I gathered that much during your game of probability manipulation, I replied dryly. I am Dr. Vex Nublax, senior researcher of comparative xenobiology at the Quinteran Science Academy. That's quite a title. Yes, well, I didn't expect it to be reduced to human's pet alien quite so quickly in my career. To my surprise, Marcus laughed. A genuine laugh, not the nervous kind most species exhibit when confronted with a Quinteran. We are not exactly known for our aesthetic appeal to humanoids, what with our blue-green exoskeleton and multiple sensory tendrils. Look, Dr. Noblax, I have no intention of treating you as property. This whole situation is just a misunderstanding. We will go to the nearest Galactic Administration office and get your contract nullified. I blinked all four of my eyes, simultaneously a gesture of surprise in my culture. You would do that? Just let me go. Of course. Humans don't keep sentient beings as property. Not anymore anyway, he grimaced. We had a bad phase with that a few centuries back. I'd read about that in the historical archives. Humans were fascinating in their capacity for both tremendous cruelty and extraordinary kindness, often within the same historical period. Well, I appreciate your ethical stance, but I'm afraid it's not that simple, I explained. The nearest Galactic Administration office is on Proxima Station, 3 sectors away. And without a valid travel permit which Gronk confiscated when he lost me to you, I can't board any registered transport. Marcus frowned. That's problematic. My ship isn't exactly registered for passenger transport. Let me guess. Smuggler? I prefer independent logistics specialist. How charmingly euphemistic. He grinned, showing those flat, omnivorous teeth that always made Quintarans slightly nervous. Look, my ship's docked nearby. Why don't we go there and figure this out? It's not safe to discuss this in the open. Gronk has friends the kind that might not like him giving away valuable assets, and I considered my options, which were embarrassingly few. Stay here and risk being reclaimed by Gronk or one of his associates, or trust this human smuggler who at least claimed to want to help me. Very well, Marcus Quinn. Lead the way to your vessel of questionable registration. The human ship, the Lucky Star, was exactly what I expected from a small-time smuggler, patched-together systems, questionable modifications, and just enough legitimate cargo to maintain a facade of honest trading. What I didn't expect was how meticulously clean it was inside. You keep a surprisingly sanitary vessel for a human, I noted as he showed me around the compact craft. Thanks, I think. He raised an eyebrow. Is that a common stereotype about humans? That we are dirty? Oh yes. Along with being unnecessarily loud, overly emotional, and having a bizarre fascination with consuming toxic substances for recreation. Marcus laughed again. Well, you have got us there. Coffee and alcohol are pretty much the cornerstones of human interstellar trade. He led me to a small cabin that apparently served as both cargo hold and living quarters. You can stay here while we figure things out. It's not much, but it's private. It will suffice, I said, examining the space. Though I require significantly less rest than humans, only about 2 hours per standard cycle. Really? That must be convenient. For research, yes. For enduring long periods of boredom, not particularly. Marcus seemed genuinely interested, asking questions about Quintaran physiology and culture as he prepared a meal in the ship's tiny galley. I found myself answering more openly than I normally would with other species. There was something disarmingly direct about him. So, wok, he said as we sat with our respective nutrient sources, is some kind of reconstituted protein, mine a simple mineral solution. We need to get you to Proxima Station, but without proper documentation. That's going to be tricky. The hegemony patrol ships around Proxima are notorious for thorough inspections. The hegemony, I groaned. Of course it would be their jurisdiction. The galactic hegemony and the Quintaran collective had a complicated relationship at best. While not openly hostile, there were enough trade disputes and territorial disagreements to make any Quintaran nervous in hegemony space. You have history with them? Marcus asked. The collective and the hegemony have been engaged in a scientific arms race for decades. My research, in particular adaptive biological interfaces, has been of significant interest to both our military and theirs. Marcus's expression changed, becoming more serious. Wait, are you saying you are working on military technology? Not directly, no. My research is purely scientific. But its applications could theoretically extend to military use. And Gronk had your contract? Marcus looked increasingly concerned. That sleazy Xylaxian might have been planning to sell your research to the highest bidder. The realization hit me like a gravitational anomaly. By the void, you are right. That would explain why the terms of my contract were so unusual. I was so excited about the rare specimens Gronk promised access to that I didn't question it thoroughly. Marcus ran his hand through his hair again, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. This complicates things. If your research has military applications, then you being transferred to a human, especially a human with my reputation, could be interpreted as the Terran Alliance trying to acquire Quintaran military secrets. That's absurd. You won your game of chance fairly. It was random happenstance. He gave me a look that even across species barriers clearly communicated you are being naive. Politics doesn't care about happenstance, Doctor. The appearance is what matters. And right now it appears that a human smuggler with known connections to Terran military contractors just acquired a Quintaran scientist with valuable military research. My sensory tendrils drooped as the implications became clear. This could trigger a diplomatic incident. At best, Marcus said grimly. At worst, it could be seen as an act of espionage. The next few hours were spent in tense planning. Marcus explained that we needed to leave the trading outpost immediately, before word spread about my transfer of ownership. He had a contact on Vega Minor who might be able to forge documentation that would get me to a Quintaran embassy. The problem, he explained as he prepared the ship for departure, is that we will need to cross through hegemony space to reach Vega Minor. And if they scan the ship and find a Quintaran scientist without proper transit documentation, they will assume the worst. I finished for him, particularly given current tensions. Exactly. So we need to be careful, really careful. As Marcus navigated the Lucky Star out of the spaceport, I couldn't help but admire his efficiency. For all the stereotypes about humans being chaotic and emotional, he moved with practiced precision, running through pre-flight checks with methodical care. We had just cleared the station's gravity well when the communication system buzzed. Marcus frowned, checking the origin code. It's from the station authority. That's weird, we already got clearance for departure. He activated the comm, and a gruff voice filled the cabin. Trading vessel Lucky Star, this is outpost security. Return to dock immediately for cargo inspection. Marcus muted the channel and looked at me. They know you are aboard. How? We have only been gone for 47 minutes. Gronk couldn't have reported anything yet it would incriminate him in illegal contract trading. Someone else must have seen the card game and put it together. Marcus unmuted the channel. Outpost security, this is Lucky Star. We have already passed inspection and received clearance. What seems to be the problem? New information has come to light. Return immediately or we will be forced to take action. Marcus muted the comm again. Yeah, that's not happening. Strap in, Doctor. Things are about to get interesting. Interesting in what way? I asked, suddenly nervous. He grinned, and I saw a spark in his eyes that confirmed every stereotype about humans and their love of danger. We are going to run. Before I could protest, Marcus slammed the throttle forward, and the Lucky Star leapt forward with surprising speed. The comm exploded with angry threats, but we were already accelerating beyond their patrol craft's capabilities. Are you insane? I shouted, my exoskeleton rattling against the acceleration couch. They will report this to every authority in the sector. Probably, Marcus agreed cheerfully, executing a series of maneuvers that seemed designed to make my digestive sac revolt. But we will be long gone by then. Gone where exactly? I'm thinking the Callisto Nebula. The radiation interferes with tracking systems. The Callisto Nebula is a navigational nightmare. Ships disappear in there all the time. Marcus patted the console affectionately. Lucky Star knows her way around. We have done this dance before. I was about to explain exactly how statistically unlikely our survival would be when the proximity alarm blared. A quick check of the scanner showed a much larger vessel entering the system, a hegemony cruiser. That's not a normal patrol ship, Marcus said, his cocky demeanor slipping for the first time. They don't usually station cruisers near trading outposts. Unless they are looking for something specific, I added, a cold feeling spreading through my thoracic cavity. Or someone? The comm system activated again, but this time it wasn't the outpost security. Attention, unregistered vessel. This is Captain Draco of the Hegemony Enforcement Cruiser Indomitable. You are harboring a fugitive of interest to Hegemony security. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Marcus switched off the comm and looked at me with wide eyes. Fugitive? What did you do? Nothing. My research is perfectly legal. My tendrils were twisting in confusion and fear, though the hegemony has tried to recruit me several times. When I refused, there were veiled threats. Great. Just great. Marcus punched in a series of commands, and the ship's engine note changed to a higher pitch. They must have been tracking you, waiting for an opportunity. And me winning you in that card game gave them the perfect excuse to intervene without creating a direct incident with the Quintaran Collective. The realization was horrifying. They are going to claim you kidnapped me. Bingo. And then they will rescue you right into a hegemony research facility. Marcus's hands flew over the controls. We need to send a message to your government. Let them know what's happening. The nearest Quintaran communication relay is 3 systems away. Then we will have to improvise. The human's face set in determined lines. I'm not letting them take you, Doctor. Not when I just went through all the trouble of winning you fair and square. Despite the dire situation, I found myself appreciating his gallows humor. Perhaps humans weren't entirely without redeeming qualities. The ship shuddered as the cruiser launched pursuit craft, and Marcus responded by diving toward the system's asteroid belt, a maneuver so reckless it could only have been conceived by a human. This is your plan? I clutched at my restraints. To get us pulverized by space rocks? Trust me, Marcus said, his focus absolute as he threaded the needle between 2 massive asteroids. This is what humans are good at, improvising when the odds are impossible. As the pursuing ships fell behind, unable to match his reckless piloting, I realized with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration that I had no choice but to trust this bizarre human. Somehow, in less than 1 standard day cycle, my life had transformed from respected researcher to fugitive fleeing through an asteroid field with a human smuggler. And strangest of all, I was starting to think that this Marcus Quinn might actually be capable of getting us out of this mess. If, that is, his typically human overconfidence didn't get us killed first. The hegemony cruiser fired a warning shot that vaporized an asteroid mere kilometers from our position. I detected the distinct energy signature of a military-grade quantum disruptor weaponry that should not be deployed in civilian sectors. They are not trying to capture us, I realized aloud. It's that weaponry could tear this ship apart. Marcus's expression hardened. Then they are really desperate to get you, Doctor. Which means your research is even more valuable than you thought. As we plunged deeper into the asteroid field with hegemony forces in pursuit, I couldn't help but wonder, how had a simple research contract led to this? And more importantly, what would happen if a human trader, a Quintaran scientist, and the hegemony military ended up in a 3-way confrontation? I had a sinking feeling we were about to find out, and that the consequences would reach far beyond our 2 species. Hold on tight, Marcus called out as he executed another impossible maneuver. Things are about to get really interesting. And in that moment, watching this human laugh in the face of certain doom, I understood why their species had spread so quickly across the galaxy despite their technological disadvantages. They were, quite simply, too stubborn to accept defeat, even when defeat was the only logical outcome. How utterly, fascinatingly human. Do humans always fly directly toward the things trying to kill them? I shouted as Marcus piloted the Lucky Star through a gap between asteroids that, by my rapid calculations, was approximately 2.3 meters wider than our ship, only on days ending in Y. He replied with that infuriating grin humans display when they should, by all logic, be terrified. Another blast from the hegemony cruiser vaporized an asteroid to our port side, sending fragments pinging against our hull. The proximity alarms were blaring so consistently they'd become background noise. We can't outrun them forever, I said, checking the rear scanners. That cruiser has enough firepower to turn this entire asteroid field into cosmic dust. Marcus nodded, his expression shifting to something more serious. I know, but we only need to stay ahead long enough to reach the Borillian trade route. We are almost there. The Borillian route? That's pirate territory. Exactly. The hegemony won't follow us there. They have an uneasy truce with the Borillian marauders. Too many valuable trade convoys pass through that sector. I stared at him, my 4 eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns of stress. You are taking us to pirates? Not just any pirates, Marcus corrected, executing another impossible maneuver between two spinning asteroids, the Boryllians. They hate the hegemony almost as much as they love profit. And what's to stop them from capturing us and selling me to the highest bidder themselves? Marcus's smile returned. The captain owes me a favor. What kind of favor could possibly offset the value of a Quintaran scientist with military-applicable research? I saved her life and her ship during the Proxima blockade. Pulled her crew out of a burning freighter while hegemony forces were boarding. Captain Lyra Voss doesn't forget debts. Before I could express my profound skepticism, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console. They have locked a tractor beam on us, I exclaimed, watching the energy readings spike. Marcus swore a colorful human expression involving anatomically impossible suggestions and slammed his hand on a red button I hadn't noticed before. The ship lurched, and suddenly we were spinning free again. What did you do? Jettisoned a cargo pod with a signal booster. Should confuse their targeting systems for a few minutes. He banked hard, taking us deeper into the densest part of the asteroid field. We are almost to the jump point. The asteroid field thinned, and ahead I could see open space. Marcus punched coordinates into the navigation system with one hand while continuing evasive maneuvers with the other. Jump drives charging, he announced. 30 seconds to. The ship rocked violently as something struck us from behind. Alarms blared, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the cabin. Direct hit, I reported, reading the damage displays. Engine power at 67%. Jump drive charging sequence interrupted. Marcus swore again. They are not trying to disable us anymore. They are shooting to kill. Why would they risk killing me if my research is so valuable? Because, Marcus said grimly, they have realized they might not be able to capture you. And if they can't have your research, they'd rather destroy it than let it fall into Terran hands. The implications were staggering. But I'm not working with the Terran Alliance. This is all a misunderstanding. Try explaining that to a trigger-happy hegemony captain with destroy orders. Marcus's hands flew over the controls. We need a new plan. The jump drive needs 3 minutes to reset. Another blast rocked the ship. The lights flickered, and several systems went offline momentarily before backup power engaged. We don't have 3 minutes, I pointed out. Marcus stared at the tactical display, then at me, then back at the display. I could almost see the reckless plan forming behind his eyes. No, I said firmly. Whatever you are thinking, no. Do you trust me, Doctor? I have known you for less than one standard day cycle. And in that time, have I given you any reason not to trust me? I considered. Despite his questionable profession and reckless piloting, Marcus had consistently acted to protect me, even at great risk to himself. It was most illogical. Fine. What's your plan? We are going to play dead. Before I could ask what he meant, Marcus shut down the main engines. The ship's lights dimmed, and we began drifting aimlessly among the asteroids, rotating slowly as if out of control. Now we release a controlled plasma leak, he continued, tapping commands. Makes it look like our reactor's been breached. Won't they just blast us anyway to be sure? Not if they think they might be able to salvage your research from our wreckage. Hegemony protocol is to board disabled vessels if there's valuable intelligence at stake. I watched in fascination as he programmed the ship's systems to emit the precise radiation signature of a critically damaged reactor. And when they board us? Marcus pulled out a small case from beneath his seat and opened it to reveal several compact weapons. We convinced them that capturing us isn't worth the trouble. Through violence? Against trained hegemony soldiers? Not violence. Negotiation. He handed me a small device. This is a data crystal containing falsified research. It suggests your work has hit a dead end, a fatal flaw in the theoretical framework. We offer it to them as a gesture of goodwill. I examined the crystal. They won't believe it without verification. That's where you come in, Doctor. You need to sell it and convince them that your research was failing, that you were desperate enough to breach contract just to escape the consequences of your failure. It was an audacious plan, completely ridiculous, utterly human, and it might just work. Very well, I agreed. But what about the jump drive? It will continue charging in low power mode. When the boarding party is distracted, we make our move. We waited in tense silence as the hegemony cruiser approached our disabled vessel. I could see it through the viewports, now a massive, angular ship bristling with weapons and scanner arrays. The comm system crackled to life. Disabled vessel. This is Captain Draco of the Hegemony Enforcement Cruiser Indomitable. Prepare to be boarded. Marcus gave me a reassuring nod before responding. This is Marcus Quinn, he said, adding a pained groan for effect. Life support failing. Reactor breach imminent. Please hurry. A convincing performance. Perhaps humans' tendency toward dramatic exaggeration had practical applications after all. Boarding party dispatched, came the reply. Do not attempt any heroics, Quinn. We know you have the Quintaran scientist. Minutes later, we heard the metallic clunk of a boarding tube connecting to our airlock. Marcus handed me one of the smaller weapons just for show. He assured me and positioned himself near the inner door. The airlock cycled, and 4 hegemony soldiers in full combat gear burst into the cabin, weapons raised. Behind them stood a tall, thin human woman in an officer's uniform, her cold eyes surveying the scene with clinical detachment. Commander Lara Vex, Hegemony Intelligence, she announced. Where is the Quintaran? I stepped forward, lowering the weapon Marcus had given me. I am Dr. Vex Noblax. There's been a misunderstanding. Her eyes narrowed. The misunderstanding is yours, Doctor. Your research belongs to the Hegemony now. My research is worthless, I replied, holding up the data crystal. See for yourself. The theoretical framework collapsed during the 3rd phase of testing. The adaptive biological interfaces degrade too quickly to be viable. Commander Vex snatched the crystal from my hand and inserted it into a portable reader. Her face betrayed nothing as she scanned the falsified data, but I could see the slight slump of disappointment in her shoulders. You expect me to believe that the renowned Dr. Noblax simply failed? She said skeptically. Science is full of failures, I replied. That's how progress works. 99 failures for every success. While the commander was distracted, Marcus had been slowly moving toward the engine control panel. I needed to keep her attention just a little longer. The Quintaran Collective already knows about my failure, I continued. That's why I accepted Gronk's research contract. I was running away from the embarrassment. Commander Vex studied me carefully. And the human. Where does he fit into this? An unfortunate coincidence. He won my contract in a game of chance, nothing more. A very convenient coincidence for the Terran Alliance, wouldn't you say? Her hand moved to her sidearm. Especially given Mr. Quinn's known connections to Terran military contractors. Marcus froze. I hadn't known about those connections. What the commander means, Marcus said smoothly, is that I occasionally transport perfectly legal cargo for companies that might, sometimes, have military contracts. Among their many other clients. Spare me your smuggler's double talk, Vex snapped. The timing is too perfect. The Quintaran Collective announces a breakthrough in adaptive biological interface technology that could revolutionize neural weaponry, and suddenly their lead scientist ends up in the hands of a human with ties to Terran military. The hegemony is not staffed by fools, Mr. Quinn. This was news to me. Breakthrough? My research team made no such announcement. For the first time, Vex looked genuinely surprised. 3 days ago, the Quintaran Science Ministry released a statement claiming a major advancement in your field. It's why we have been tracking you. Marcus and I exchanged glances. Something wasn't right. Commander, I said carefully, I have been out of contact with my government for over a week. If such an announcement was made, it was done without my knowledge or authorization. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. She turned to one of her soldiers. Verify the Quintaran statement. Full biological scan to detect deception. The soldier stepped forward with a handheld scanner. I submitted to the examination, confident in my truthfulness. After a moment, the soldier nodded. Physiological indicators suggest honesty, Commander. Vex frowned. Then we have a more complex situation than anticipated. She tapped her communicator. Captain, I need a direct line to Hegemony Command. There may be a third party involved in. She never finished the sentence. The ship lurched violently as Marcus slammed his hand down on the engine restart sequence. The sudden acceleration threw the Hegemony soldiers off balance, and in the confusion, Marcus activated the emergency airlock protocols. Grab something, he shouted to me as the boarding tube detached with a grinding screech of metal. Commander Vex lunged for Marcus, but the sudden decompression in the corridor pulled her back toward the airlock. She managed to grab a support beam, hanging on with impressive strength as her soldiers were sucked out into the void between our ship and the Hegemony cruiser. The boarding tube, she screamed over the howl of escaping air. You detached while it was still pressurized. Sorry about that, Marcus replied, not sounding sorry at all as he strapped himself into the pilot's seat. But we have got places to be. When the emergency bulkheads finally sealed, ending the decompression, Commander Vex collapsed to the floor, alone and now our prisoner. You realize what you have done, she gasped, her face contorted with rage. That was an act of war. Self-defense, Marcus corrected, reactivating all systems. Your people fired first. Jump drive charged and ready, I reported, checking the systems. Wait. Vex struggled to her feet. You don't understand. We are not the only ones after your research. The announcement from the Quintaran Science Ministry? It was falsified. It caught my attention. Falsified by whom? We don't know yet. But someone wants to provoke a conflict between the Hegemony and the Quintaran Collective. They used your research as the bait. Marcus didn't slow his preparations. And we are supposed to believe you because, Vex said grimly, the Borillian route you are heading for is crawling with mercenary ships that aren't bound by the usual treaties. Ships waiting specifically for you, Dr. Noblax. I checked the long-range scanners. She was right. At least 7 unidentified vessels were moving into position along our planned escape route. She could be lying, Marcus said, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. Scan their energy signatures, Vex suggested. Compare them to known Borillian configurations. Marcus did so, his expression darkening. They are not Borillian ships. The configuration is, wait, that can't be right. What is it? I moved to see the scanner display. They are using modified Quintaran drive systems, he said, looking at me with confusion. But the weapons signatures are Terran. The implications hit me like a gravitational wave. A third faction, using both Quintaran and Terran technology, trying to provoke a war between the Hegemony and the Collective. While stealing your research in the chaos, Vex added, classic misdirection. Marcus looked between us, then at the scanner showing the approaching ships. So, temporary alliance? Vex hesitated, then nodded curtly. Conditional cooperation until we identify the true threat. I can contact my government directly, I offered. Explain the situation before it escalates further. And I can alert the Terran Alliance that someone's using our weapon signatures without authorization, Marcus added. I will inform Captain Draco to stand down, Vex agreed. But we need proof to present to our respective governments. Marcus grinned that reckless human grin again. Then let's go get some. I have an idea. Over the next 24 hours, our unlikely alliance executed what Marcus called the most insane plan in the history of interspecies cooperation. Using the Lucky Star as bait, we lured one of the mercenary vessels into a trap, disabled it with a precisely calculated asteroid collision, then boarded it to retrieve their data cores. What we found confirmed our suspicions and revealed something far worse. The mercenaries worked for a secretive conglomerate called the Nexus Syndicate, a shadow organization comprised of rogue elements from all 3 major powers. Their plan was elegant in its simplicity. Steal my research, use it to develop weapons that appeared to come from both the Terran Alliance and the Quintaran Collective, then deploy them against hegemony targets. The resulting three-way war would create a power vacuum that the Syndicate could exploit, selling advanced weapons to all sides while positioning themselves to take control once the major powers had weakened each other sufficiently. With the evidence secured, Commander Vex was able to convince her superiors of the truth. Marcus contacted his Terran connections, while I established an emergency channel to the Quintaran Science Ministry. Within hours, an unprecedented joint task force was formed to deal with the Nexus Syndicate threat. "You know," Marcus said as we watched hegemony, Terran and Quintaran ships coordinating to round up the remaining mercenary vessels, "this whole mess started with a card game. And nearly ended in galactic war," I added. "All because someone thought my research was worth stealing." "Is it?" he asked. "Worth stealing, I mean." I considered the question. Yes and no. The potential is significant, but as I tried to explain to Commander Vex, I'm still years away from a practical application. Years that the three major powers will now spend cooperating instead of fighting, thanks to our accidental diplomacy, Marcus noted with satisfaction. Commander Vex approached us, her formerly cold demeanor noticeably thawed. "The Joint Council has reached a decision regarding your situations." We waited nervously. "Dr. Noblax, you are to be returned to the Quintaran Collective with full honors. Your contract with Xylax Trading has been voided due to fraudulent terms." She turned to Marcus. "Mr. Quinn, your, creative interpretation of interstellar law has been overlooked in light of your service in exposing the Syndicate plot. Your ship will be repaired, and you will receive a suitable reward." "Define suitable," Marcus said with a smirk. Vex almost smiled. "Almost. Enough to buy that new drive system you have been eyeing in the Regellian shipyards." Marcus whistled. "How did you know about that?" "We are intelligence officers, Mr. Quinn. It's our job to know things." As Vex departed, Marcus turned to me. "So, Doctor, I guess this is where we part ways." "Actually," I said, my tendrils twisting in what humans might recognize as embarrassment, "I have been authorized to offer you a position." "A position?" "The Quintaran Science Ministry was impressed by your unorthodox problem-solving abilities. They believe someone with your perspective could be valuable to our research teams. As a consultant, of course." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A legitimate job? Working with Quintaran scientists?" "Me? Me?" "It would involve considerable travel between systems, diplomatic immunity in Quintaran space, and access to advanced technology." I paused. "Though you would have to stop smuggling, mostly." He laughed, that full-bodied human laugh that I'd come to find less grating. "A smuggler turned diplomatic science consultant. My old academy instructors would have a collective aneurysm." "Is that a yes?" Marcus extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. "Dr. Vex Noblax, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful scientific partnership." As we shook hands, my tendrils wrapping gently around his fingers, I reflected on the bizarre chain of events that had brought us here. A card game, a misunderstood contract, a high-speed chase, and an almost war. All culminating in an unprecedented cooperation between three galactic powers that had been on the brink of conflict for decades. "You humans have a saying," I noted. "Fortune favors the bold." Perhaps there's some scientific validity to it after all. Or maybe, Marcus suggested with a wink, the universe just has a weird sense of humor. Looking at our unlikely alliance, a human smuggler, a Quintaran scientist, and a hegemony commander working together against all odds, I couldn't help but agree. The universe did indeed have a peculiar sense of comedy. And somehow, against all probability, we'd managed to have the last laugh.